Hey Tom, what's going on?
Hey, I just wanted to give you my glove.
Really? That's like your favorite thing. And don't you have a game tomorrow?
Yeah, but I just wanted to give it to you. Because I don't need it anymore.
You wanna hang out?
Nothing, sorry, you got other plans.
As a teenager, his love was theater, and it played right into he was a very gifted actor, and so there were many people who were not aware of how much he struggled with depression.
We didn't have any idea that Trevor was struggling. We didn't know that he was depressed. We didn't know that he was suicidal.
He had some challenges in his life, but like nothing that we ever felt was unsolvable, and good support from the rest of my siblings, and just a beloved person. He was so loved, and spoke with him the day before, and then the following morning, I love you too, brother. And the next morning sent a text message saying, can't take it anymore, going to be with Mom, please come and get Archie, his dog.
We lost our son Trevor to suicide back in January of 2012.
Trevor was a straight-A student. He was in the National Honor Society. He was a normal kid as far as we were concerned. He was involved in school activities. I think I had this misconception about, and I feel like a lot of other people do too, about who people are that die by suicide. I felt like, well, those people have really huge problems, or they have some alcohol issues, or I don't know what those are, but there's some judgments we put on people who, and what I have found is that no, people who die by suicide are just as normal as you and me. They're just, normal people who are struggling with something that we can't see.
It's possible to even live with someone and not realize that they're hurting.
My beautiful son was born in 1976, a bicentennial baby. He's very bright, very loving, very compassionate, very talented actor, a wonderful friend to a wide variety of people. But he, like so many people, he was eaten up by shame. I did not know that he had a shoplifting charge. He shoplifted alcohol after he had lost his job. A lot of us did not know he had lost his job. He was very good at keeping things compartmentalized and hidden. And so that was a shocker that he had lost his job. I only found that out a couple of weeks before he died. They wanted to host Thanksgiving dinner at their house. There were a bunch of them sharing a house, and that they wanted to invite their parents and siblings. And that felt very hopeful too. So we certainly accepted that invitation. And as we were getting ready to go for that Thanksgiving Day and that Thanksgiving dinner, police officer arrived at the house to let us know that he had taken his life.
I've had 2 suicides in my own family. One is my father and my brother Steve. And my brother Steve was just last year. So that was rather shocking when you have, 2 people in your immediate family that take their life in the same way. Suicide is shocking anyway, but to go from there to there, like that, what did we miss? What did we miss? What did we miss? And it it just so bothers my sister to this day. She just can't get past it. What did I miss? What was wrong? What happened? And I think that's another thing that's so frustrating about suicide. It's such a hard task to address.
He started to really withdraw from us and really withdraw from any of his circle of friends who weren't using alcohol and drugs like he was. And it was very painful. When we did see him, we could tell, just physically, he was pretty clear he was in decline.
I felt that there were some signs that I missed. He had a discussion with me about life after death, which I didn't at all recognize to be something that was him contemplating dying. Once I've gotten involved a little bit in the suicide prevention effort and learned that's really kind of a primary sign of a sudden interest or disinterest in religion or talking about life after death. And I believe that there were some other things too that we've heard that were missed. Little signs, maybe by themselves not so obvious, but that's why it's so important that people talk. Because if you get a couple of these things that are kind of signs and then you start to fit that puzzle together, it's like, wait a second, what's going on right now? I think we have a problem. Suicide isn't so much about a person wanting to die, in my opinion. I think it's they're struggling to live. And no one who dies that way wanted to die.
The feeling that survivors describe is, my house is on fire and I have to get out. It's very much like, we've all seen those horrific pictures of people at the World Trade Center choosing to jump. It's not that they want to die, it's they want that pain to stop. That is excruciating, unacceptable pain.
I suffered from depression when, a few years back. So I can remember the worst level of my depression. I was just in this really dark hole. And I remember I couldn't really see anything out of that dark hole, and everything was just numb and dark. And I remembered thinking and feeling, and it was shocking at the time, this is what people feel like before they end their life. And it was just so strong and compelling. And fortunately that day, not long after that, a friend stopped by the house to check on me and see how I was doing, and actually took me for a car ride. And it was in Southern California, and it was dusk, and took me by a soccer field where all of these kids with all these different colors on their uniforms and stuff, all of a sudden I just snapped in. And I snapped back to life, and I just kind of started coming out of that dark hole. So I guess if anything, with me sharing this, it's, if anybody could just know that even though you think you're done, that you actually can come back out of that hole and have a beautiful and amazing life.
I was just working a lot. I wasn't taking care of myself. I was probably lucky to get a couple hours of sleep a night. I was working so much. So I was trying to get in the Navy at the time. So I was battling back and forth, struggling, trying to, lose the weight.
We knew what kind of struggles he was going through because we had the recruiter here quite a few times talking to us about putting him on an all-salad diet and, just all this crazy stuff about trying to get him to lose weight. And, it was frustrating to us too because my husband was in the military. He was in the Navy, and he's like, yeah, this is what they want, and this is how they get them into shape. And to me, I mean, Joshua he's so big, you know, and for them to keep telling him that he needed to lose weight, you know, so we were trying to be strict with him and help him, and, you know, it was getting frustrating.
It was something I wanted to do, you know, and it just seemed like, you know, a couple days went by, and then it was weeks, and it was months going by, so it was like, you know, the time frame was kind of weighing down, you know. I had a set date I wanted to get out and, you know, be gone by then. I missed that date, and so I had another date set, and, you know, it was just, you know, a lot of, you know, kind of letdowns. You know, I graduated high school weighing in almost, you know, 240, 250, and I ended up getting down to like 210 within months, you know, and then I couldn't drop the last couple pounds.
He was working a lot. I rarely got to see him. He was working 2 jobs, so he'd go from one to the next, and we kept telling him to take it easy, you know, and take care of himself, but he's always been like that. He's always wanted to work hard. He's like that, you know, it's his personality. Joshua let me know that he was going to go out there and go hunting, and he was raised hunting and fishing, you know, so did I see any indications? No.
I was out hunting in the morning and taking care of some of the chores I had to do at the camp, and I was out there, and it was starting to get dark, and I wanted to get back out one time, so I had to go back to work the next day, so I decided to go back out, and it was one of the littlest things that, you know, caused the accident too. It's, you know, like every time because we got to go onto the road to get to the trail where we go, and, you know, I forgot to flip my hat backwards so the wind wouldn't catch it. So I got down onto the trail and I started going down the hill, and, you know, a gust of wind came and caught my hat, and it flew off. So I looked back to see where it went, and I ended up rolling the four-wheeler, you know, so it was just like one of the little things that I missed, you know, that caused it, you know. If it wasn't for that, you know, nothing may have happened, you know, or it may have, you know, I don't know. Was the drinking a factor? Yeah, you know, I wasn't in the right state of mind as it was, you know, before that, and then I threw that in with it, and, you know, then everything that was on top of it was just one giant mess that caught on fire, you know, so, and by the time I got to that point, I really didn't, it wasn't, you know, I had already made up my mind, you know, I was done. And there's only so much, you know, one person can, you know, put on their shoulders before they break. You know, I tried holding a lot more than I could. You know, and what happened that day, that was just the straw that broke my back.
I was sitting here with my youngest son, and my mom had called, and she had said to me, "Your dad and I are kind of worried about Josh, you know, he hasn't called." And I said, "Mom, he's fine, you know, he's out at camp, he's doing his thing, you know, he's fine, he's smart. Greg taught him well, and we've taught him well, you know, he knows what to do in case he needs us." And I remember getting the phone call, and I don't know, it was just like this instinct. I remember hearing this voice on the other end, and I had seen it came up Grand View on my phone, and instantaneously I thought it was my dad, you know, something was wrong with him. And I heard the voice on the other end of the phone say, "Are you Crystal Suzik? Are you Joshua Suzik's mom?" And I said, "Yes, I'll be right there," and I hung up. It was just like this instant reaction. I yelled at my youngest one to hurry up and get his boots on. "Hurry up, let's go. We got to go to the hospital now." And all I could think was, you know, he was out in the woods and something happened, you know, or maybe he was at the camp, or maybe he was driving in, you know. You run all those scenarios in your head. And I remember getting to the hospital and being met at the doors by the police officer. I remember the first moment I walked into the room, And I insisted it wasn't him. I couldn't recognize him. I couldn't even tell it was my own son until I got up close enough to see his eyes and get past all the blood and the nightmare. Did I see any signs? I'm his mom, you know, and I didn't recognize what the signs were. Thought he was working too much. I thought he was putting too much pressure on himself with the military. I felt that we were putting too much pressure on him. And now when I think back about it, it's like, who cares? You know, my kid, I gave birth to that boy, and now I might have to say my last goodbye. You know, so did we recognize anything that was going on? No, we didn't notice. We didn't. So it's easy to miss. It's easy to not know. It is, and it's very shocking, and, you know, it's a nightmare to go through. It's a nightmare to have your child go through it. And it's even more of a nightmare to know that you might have been able to prevent it if you had shared your own story. I didn't talk about it until Joshua woke up and he was ready to hear what I had to say, and I had to tell him because I kind of felt like a liar not saying it to him. You know, I felt like, God, you know, how could you have kept this from him for so long? And when I talked to him, I made sure that I was alone, so it was just him and I, and telling him my story, you know, and it shocked him. You know, here's his mom, who he thought was strong, you know, and now he sees that I had to struggle for so long, having kept quiet about what I had done, you know, and then having to face my youngest son and tell him the same thing, and tell him, you know, yeah, I tried taking my life, and if I had, you wouldn't be here, you know, and your dad would have been left taking care of your brother. God, you know, can you imagine? Can you imagine having not been here for him? Can you imagine not having Jacob?
We lose, according to the CDC, around 42,000 people to suicide every year. And that's just reported suicides. So there are other suicides that go unreported. Things that might look like an accident, or the medical examiner area may not want to write suicide on the death certificate because they know the family or something like that. But with the research that the CDC has done and the World Health Organization, we know that just in the United States, and that's just one country, the United States, every year around 19 million people have thoughts of suicide in that year. In that year, 19 million people. And we probably lose far more than that 42,000 people every year. So this affects everyone in some way.
The way I looked at it is it was my problem to handle. You know, I was going to deal with it. You know, I was growing up. It was that's what I thought I had to do. You just got to learn how to talk about certain things. That's the thing. You know, a big thing too. You know, it's kind of like a load off your chest when you do say you need help with something.
Maybe if I had been empathetic for myself and had talked about it and what I had gone through and the struggles that I had just getting to where I am now, I might have been able to help my son, you know, and having that understanding now, I want to help other people not go through this. I want to help other people understand there's a way to get past it.
You know, reach out. There's a whole lot of people who want to help you. and will help guide you through this tough time in your life, because that's what it is. It's a tough time in your life, and get some help, and you'd be surprised at all the people who are going to be there to help you. And if you're not being heard, well, then ask again, and ask in a different way, and keep asking until you get the help that you need, and you will make it through this.
My mother had a fairly serious suicide attempt when I was in my 20s, but she reached out, and we were able to help her survive that and get treatment for that. And she had a number of attempts over the course of her life, but she survived. She stayed with us and died from natural causes.
On the suicide hotline that we answer, anyone calling from the UP, that actually rolls to us, even though that's a national suicide hotline number. Well, sometimes we get family members or friends who they know that somebody in their life is at risk, and they don't really know what to do about it. They don't know what to say about it. They don't know what the resources are. So when that lifeline call lights up, it's not always just the person who's at risk. It can be people who literally don't know what to do or how to help. And so we talk to them about that as well. We definitely have had people who are struggling with that, wanting to live, wanting to die, people who've actually already overdosed before they called us. And we were able to create enough safety for them to admit that, to get emergency services.
A lot of people have these thoughts now, and if everyone's having these thoughts, it's sad that we kind of put that stigma out there that we don't want people to talk about it because it's uncomfortable for us to hear it sometimes.
It probably feels as though this trauma is going to kill you, and we're proof that people can come out on the other side and find a way to have a good and meaningful and happy life again, despite that loss. And for us, it's the most powerful way that we've learned to remember and honor Travis, who is still very much a part of our lives. He's part of our family and always will be.
If you could only know that ending your life is a permanent solution to a very, very temporary problem. And it may not seem like it's a temporary problem right now, but it is. And we know that, and we want you to know that.
It's really sad, you know, that there's this idea that mental illness is really bad, you know. It's just like cancer, or, you know, if you have a broken leg. I mean, it's just something that can be fixed. I mean, it can be worked with, you know. And I think kids need to know that. Talking about what we're going through is helpful for people who haven't been through it, because then maybe they can understand how maybe to offer support.
You need to be able to realize that there is help, and I'm not alone. Other people have been through this and made it through. And as a matter of fact, suicide is like the most preventable cause of death, especially among our youth.
Yeah, you can get by it. It takes work, you know, definitely. You know, you gotta learn, you know, it's definitely not something you can just hide from. You know, 'cause I tried that and it didn't work. You know, you just gotta take it head on, and you know, it's like, all right, this happened. You know, I'm not gonna let it haunt me. Yeah, I'm young, but you know, that's the thing I'm looking forward to, is, you know, having you know, kids, and you know, it's watching them grow up, you know, probably the same way my parents did with me. So me and my brother, you know, going out fishing and hunting, and probably show them how to partially put things back together until we break again.
Hearing Joshua say the biggest thing that he looks forward to is a family. And I almost gave my life up for that. I almost gave up my family. And then I almost lost my son, who might have never had a family.